Barry, good morning. I know, Barry, I'm on island time. I was like in the middle of putting on my lipstick, and Barry's calling me on my phone. Like, hey, I don't see you there. I'm like, it's 7:59. A girl still has a few minutes, or one. But anyway, hey, Barry. This is all new to Barry. He hasn't done this yet. So he is trying to find me. And once he's here, we'll invite him into the room. And we're super excited to have him. Come on, Barry. Come on, Elton John Barry. Let's see if I can find him. Oh, there he is. He gives... We'll be able to watch it too. Hey, Ruby. Barry.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming. You like how I'm on island time? I was telling everybody how you called me at 7:59. Like, I don't see you. I'm like, I'm still in the bathroom putting on some lip gloss, please.
Well, I know, but you said 8 o'clock, and everyone else is 8 o'clock is 8 o'clock. But I mean,
it was 7:59. I still had a minute.
It's okay.
So, Barry, I just wanted to introduce you to everybody who ever looks at this, and just kind of learn a little bit more about you, because I know that you are an extraordinary person, and you're an extraordinary person on the DL. So, Barry, so I know a little bit about your backstory. I want people to kind of know a little bit what would make somebody give their kidney to their friend who's not even a great friend.
Yeah. Listen, Matt's probably still sleeping, but he is a great friend. Matt and I have, we've known each other for a long time, and we became real fast friends, and I didn't know much about him when I started working with him. Mm-hmm. And then, once we started working together, and then we had an opportunity to work together again, kind of on our own terms, and traveling a lot. We spent a lot of time together traveling, from Charlotte down to everywhere. I mean, all over the country. Yeah. And we had a lot of time. I obviously had a lot of time, to have conversations, and, they weren't always, I can't ever remember, maybe a couple of times where we ever got into discussions where we didn't agree with each other. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't like that at all. And we kind of, we worked with other people that weren't really, I don't want to sound odd, but they weren't really our caliber. And
right. Okay. I remember you guys telling me some of the stories. I was like, who are these people?
Right. Yeah. It was like seriously, it was like the Netflix show Ozark before Ozark came out,
or Tiger King.
Yeah. In fact,
Tiger King meets Ozark.
Yeah. In fact, I think that we even talked a lot about putting cameras in our car while we were driving. We were talking about putting little cameras in the car and just recording everything that we went through. And that would have been really, at that time, we could have been the forefront of reality TV, because that would have.
You want to tell a little story?
What's that?
Do you have a little story you could tell?
I have a lot of stories to tell, but I don't think this is really the forum. So, yeah. This is, the murder scene down in, just, there's a lot of things. And they're all
crazy.
Anyway.
Yeah. I love the one that you guys were telling me the other day about the guy without the teeth, who's like drunk off of his bum, and he's just like spitting his teeth out. And,
I won't use his name on here, but he would get so animated when he spoke, and he wore dentures. And so when he spoke and he got so animated, he'd just start start almost screaming and it's becoming so animated. And he'd just be like, and his teeth would just come out of his mouth, and he'd just take them and shove them back in. And
so these were the caliber of people you guys were working around.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was nothing for you know, you to find a wig the next day, or like a wig of someone that they had in one of their hotel rooms that was just left on the bedpost. Or
would you stop? Oh my
yeah,
God!
it was just like you just don't understand. And yeah, it was one thing that I talked to Matt a lot about is, I said, Matt, you know, I said, as hard as we're working down here on this project that we're working on, how come we don't see any of this revenue that these other people see? And one thing that he said to me was, he said, you got to understand, he said this is the best it's going to get for them ever. And he was talking about faith to me. And he said, this is the best that they're ever going to get, because there is nothing better for them. And I had to wrap my mind around that for quite a while. And, you know, I went through, I was previously married, and so being on the road that much was actually good for me, because I was not in a very good, it was a pretty toxic relationship.
Yeah.
And so being on the road and being gone that much was great for me, because it kind of built my view of the world through Matt's eyes.
Oh.
And he and I had some really in-depth conversations while we were gone. And so kind of fast forward. So when I found out that he was sick, I just one moment decided that, hey, I'm going to be the one to not only, I claimed it. I said, not only am I going to be the one to get tested and to do this, but I'm going to be the one to donate my kidney. I'm going to be his kidney donor. And I just said it, and I said it without even really thinking about the ramifications. And now I look back on it and I'm thinking, why are more people not doing this?
Yeah.
And,
were you ever scared, Barry?
You know, I never was. I never was, because I thought to myself, look, this is the right thing to do. And it's not going to affect me health-wise, you know, to do this, but it is going to affect him health-wise. And so there was something that I could do that would positively affect somebody else, and it would not have any negative effects on me whatsoever. And I didn't know anything about it, but you know what? I've kind of lived my whole life like that. Like, hey, I'm going to do this. And once I get my mind wrapped around something that I'm going to do, then there's no stopping me.
Tell me this, were you raised in an environment that would have taught you to be selfless and to see a really deep intrinsic need in another, and want to I guess answer that need? Like, were you raised like that?
Like altruistically?
Yeah. Were you raised to be compassionate and to see?
You know, my mom is very compassionate. She puts everybody's feelings in front of her own. And you know, my dad, not so much.
Yeah.
But it's not like he was the opposite of that. It was just that wasn't his outward. That's not his outward appearance. And I mean, they're both good people deep down, but I don't think consciously on that surface level, that's what I was being taught, but subconsciously maybe.
Yeah. Do you have siblings?
You know, I do. I have a younger brother, and my younger brother, you know, he's a lot like my dad. Him and his family live up in just outside Chicago, and then I had an older brother who passed away from heroin use, and he was, you know, no kids, no marriage or anything, so thank God. But our family's not very close, it's not, you know, I know a lot of these families, like my wife, you know, talks to her mom and her sisters every day. And if they could, they would live, you know, on the same street or just a couple of miles from each other. And
But
I've
that's
just
not the
never,
case with yours.
not at all. No. You know, it's
And
just
I
not.
remember Patrick,
Mhm.
if I could just speak to that so that people know, like, Patrick passed away months before you gave your kidney.
He did. He passed away in March of 2000 and no, excuse me, May of 2018 is when he passed away.
And you gave your kidney in 2019, and we thought it was going to be in 2018.
Yeah, we thought it
initially.
was going to be at the end of 2018, and it was going to be the end of 2018, and it was. I went down from, you know, I live in the Midwest, and so I went down to where Matt is, and got tested, and they said, hey, there's a problem. You know, you're showing up with this antibody in your blood, and so we did the research. We figured out what's going on, and actually there were a couple of problems with that whole surgery. That was the second one.
Yeah, tell them, because this is really interesting. There was a lot of things, like when you said, I declared it, that I was going not only to be tested,
Right.
I was going to be a match, and I was ultimately going to be the one who was going to give my kidney. There were so many things that tried that along the way. Do you remember that?
Yeah, the first one, I'll get back to the testing there, but the first one was it was basically they said, hey, we just as a precaution, we want you to go get an EKG done. We hear there may be something going on with your heart, and we want to get an EKG done. And so I went and got tested, and I got tested at a pretty prestigious heart institute, and the report was, I said, hey, I need the report right now. I'll just wait for it. So they did the report, and then they gave it to me, and the report said that I had a pretty substantial aortic leak in my heart. And they said basically, they said about 40% of the blood that your heart pumps out leaks back into your aortic valve. And I said, well, what's that mean? And they said, well, it means that you're not very healthy to donate a kidney. And I said, well, this doesn't sound right. I said, what kind of symptoms would I have if this were true? And they'd say, well, you'd be very tired, and you'd be almost lethargic, and you'd be, you know, basically just really tired and really fatigued all the time. And I said, well, I'm not that way at all. In fact, anyone who knew me before I gave my kidney,
you're like the Energizer Bunny. That's what I call you.
My energy level is about 140, where
it's
everybody
ridiculous.
else is 80 or 100, and
or less.
Yeah, and really, yeah, that kind of calmed down a little bit after I gave my kidney. But I'm still my 100% is still greater than a lot of people's.
So you have felt a dip in your energy levels?
Yeah, a little bit, but just I have felt like, you know, like I'm my true age now, you know, being 47 or 46, and I kind of feel like I'm, you know, I feel, before I would feel like I'm, you know, in my mid 30s, and now I feel like I'm in my late 30s, if that makes sense.
I get it. Well, that makes sense.
But so I had this test done, and they said I was ineligible to donate a kidney, and
I remember that.
I was heartbroken. I called up Shay, and I called up Matt, and I said, you know, I'm sorry, I failed you. There's something, you know, I can't do this. And you know, we talked about it, we prayed about it, my wife and I prayed about it, and I decided to go to another cardiologist and say, listen, I want a second opinion. So I brought the report, I brought the film, I brought everything that I needed to bring, and he talked to me for about 5 minutes, and he said, now this report's wrong. He said, this isn't a report on your heart, because if this report were true, he said, I would be able to hear this from just standing next to you. And so he ordered a couple of tests for me, and when those tests came back, he said, yeah, this is absolutely erroneous, this test that you have here. And he said, I'm going to write a new report and a new letter of opinion. And he wrote it, and he said that not only do I not have an aortic leak in my heart, but I have the heart of about a 20-year-old. He said, I'm very, very healthy.
which was so amazing on your part, because you could have stopped right there when you got, and I need people to know, so you are in the Midwest, we are in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Right.
And you get that report here in Charlotte at one of our big hospitals where ultimately Matt had his transplant.
No, I actually got that report up here.
Oh, did you? No.
Yeah.
The first report that was wrong was
was
here, right?
No, it was up here. Yeah.
It was up there?
Because
okay.
what I did was I left the testing facility. I left the hospital down there.
Uh-huh.
I left, can I mention the name of the hospital?
Yeah.
So it's Atrium Health, obviously in Charlotte, North Carolina, and the kidney team, it was, Dr. Vince Cassingill and
Dr.
Nurse
Denny.
Feemster. Yeah. Nurse Feemster and all the team, they've been absolutely just wonderful,
right,
on my part. And then it was, I left there and came back up here to Indianapolis to get tested, and that's where I had that test. And so then about a month after that, then I went and had another test done.
Okay, both tests in Indiana. Okay.
Up in Indiana, yeah. So I went to another test, and I saw another cardiologist at another hospital system.
Okay.
And then he cleared me. So I took that test. So you have to understand, once I got that first test and those results, I had to send those. I had to forward those to the kidney team down in Atrium.
In Charlotte. Yeah.
In Charlotte, yeah. I had to send them, and they had to convene, and they had to look at the results and say, okay, it's our opinion that you're not that you're going to be barred from donating a kidney. You're not healthy, and we can't take the risk. Because you have to understand, with a kidney donation from a live donor, they have to take a look at, this is an absolutely non-essential,
surgery.
This is a surgery that it's basically, and it's elective. It's an elective surgery for the donor.
Yeah.
And so they say, we're not going to do this if there's any risk at all to the donor, because we don't need to. And so then,
Pause
I had
real quick. You remember, ultimately, I loved it when you told me, you said, what did the doctors tell you? Because the donor is very, very important in this process. Very important. And I remember you have to go through psychological testing too, to see whether or not you are emotionally and mentally prepared to do this, and whether you're doing it for the right reasons. I remember you having to go through that kind of scrutiny. And one of the questions that the doctor asked you, I thought was so interesting. Could you share?
They basically, it's, they want to make sure that A, you're not being pressured to do this. And they're also making sure that you're not being offered any compensation. And so they say, listen, I want to, and it's an actual doctor that comes in. He's a patient advocate, and he says, hey, listen, I'm a doctor, but in this case here, I'm a patient advocate, and I want you to know that this is absolutely confidential, and I'm going to give you a card. And he gave me a business card of some other doctor, but on the back of it, it had just a regular telephone number on it, written on the telephone number. And he said, that telephone number right there is a private line. No, if you dial it, no one will know that you dialed it. No one will have any record of it. And if you tell me that you don't want to do this, that you're either being pressured by the recipient or the recipient's family, or you're being offered money for this, or there's some sort of, you have any kind of second thoughts about this at all, then I want you to just dial that number, and I'll call you back, and then we'll have a conversation about it. And then at that point, he said, I will actually stop this process, and they won't even know, the recipient won't even know that you wanted to stop this process. I'm gonna put some sort of medical reason on it that you can't donate. And it was so interesting to me, because I said, well, really? I said, do you have people who do that? And he said, well, we've had a couple of cases before where someone basically threatened the other person and said, hey, you're going to donate this because we need the money, and we're actually going to sell this on the black market.
Isn't that crazy?
And it's so crazy even to think of how that thing would actually play out.
Right.
Because, we actually have a video. We have a video of the operating room. That they shot in the actual hospital shot it for a promotional video, because not only did the hospital follow us around and do interviews and do things to tell our story about this, because they use that to share that with other potential donors and potential recipients, because they wanted to show the real life scenario of how it played out.
Yeah.
So once I get this, once I got this test done and he said, hey, you're absolutely fine for surgery, I had to send that back to the team who had already convened once to determine that I was not a recipient. I could not.
I just want people to understand, like, you are fighting to give your kidney to Matthew, fighting for it. I mean, like, you're advocating. You're like, nope, let me go get checked.
Yeah.
I don't have
it was
a heart
almost
issue.
as hard. It was almost as hard as getting tested for the COVID-19.
I know.
Yeah. So
we're going to get to that.
Yeah, it was almost as hard as that.
Know about that
So then once I had this new report, I sent that there, and I called my team up and I said, look, you have to reconvene. You have to look at this new evidence. I said, you've got to look at this stuff. And they said, okay, well, we're going to do it. We're going to look at this. And that wasn't their protocol. Their protocol was that team has so many different cases that they're working on that they had to fit me in to reconvene with both teams. And they have basically, 3 or 4 or 5 people.
And tell people there's 2 teams, because there's a team who extracts the kidney from you, and then there's the team who places it in Matthew. So there's 2 teams. You have a whole team of doctors for you, the donor, and Matthew has a whole team of doctors for him, the recipient of the
and they have to basically keep everything separate, because they have to Matt's team is advocating for him. My team is advocating for me, and they both have to agree that this is the best course of action for both. And so, yeah, there's a lot of moving parts in this.
A lot.
And so then once they did that, then they met, and of course, I was talking to Nurse Feemster, and she met, and she said, yeah, we're going to get an answer back today or tomorrow. And of course, those days felt like they were weeks and weeks and weeks long. And because when they told me, hey, we're going to get an answer back today, then that was on a Thursday. Then it was, hey, I'm out of the office on Friday. We're going to meet again on Wednesday. And so I'm just on pins and needles the whole time trying to get approved.
And
once they came down and they said, hey, you know what, we've talked about it. You're approved for the surgery. You're his new donor. And then all we need to do now is just get some blood tests done, get the final things done. So then after they approved me, then I had these tests done, these blood tests done a day before surgery. So I went down to Charlotte, and this was I think it was in December that I went down originally. My wife flew down for the surgery, and she flew down the night before the surgery, and she was going to fly back the day of surgery after I got out. And the night before surgery, they did another blood test, and it came back that I had tested positive for hepatitis C, hepatitis B1.
But not that you tested, but that you had the antibodies.
Right. So they did these tests. They say, hey, here's the test, and the test is positive, but then the confirmation test was negative.
Right.
And so they said, that just means that you have the antibodies in your system somewhere.
You've been exposed to it. You've been,
exactly. At one point, you've been exposed to it, and they said, we can't take the chance. We're not going to do the surgery. And so
we're like,
of course,
and I remember that your wife was just about to get on the plane. Actually, she was still at the airport, and she was just about to get on the plane. And we got that information because you were here in Charlotte,
right?
And I remember I dropped you. Now I had to take Matthew somewhere. I had to take you. I was the Uber driver that week.
Right.
And I remember picking you up and you saying they're saying that and it was later in the afternoon. They're saying that they can't do it because they found the antibody for Hep C. And I was like, what? And we're all like, what? And you're like racking your brain. You remember you're going everywhere. Like, did I ever touch anything of my brother's? Like, you're thinking everything. That's what
they said. They basically said, when, this certain strain of hepatitis is commonly used with if you share needles with an intravenous drug user. And so I was thinking to myself, because my doctor, Dr. Castigal knew that I had a brother that had died of drug use. And so he was like, hey, did you ever, I'm not trying to judge you, but did you ever share needles with you? Did you ever? And I was like, no. I said, I haven't seen him. And I said, the only thing I can think of is all his stuff got shipped up to my house. and we had boxes and boxes and boxes of things, and he had like razor kits in there, and he had stuff, and of course, you know, I'm not going to be like, oh, hey, look at this, a razor that's half used. Let me go ahead and use it. You know,
Right.
let me save $4 and not buy a new razor blade.
Right.
Right. And what we did was we did the research on it, and I said, you know, the only thing that I've done differently is I took the flu shot.
Mm-hmm.
And so they said, when did you take the flu shot? And I said, well, it was, I want to say.
You and Matt actually came up with that one.
Yeah, I think we did.
Y'all
Yeah,
were
it was
here in this house talking. We're like, well, what has changed? You even actually asked.
Yeah.
You're like, wait, my wife is a dental hygienist.
Yeah.
She's working in people's mouths.
Yeah.
All the time. Maybe she has gotten. I want people to know this.
Yeah, and
maybe she's gotten exposed.
Yeah, my doctor said that she should go get tested.
And she did.
Yeah, she did go get tested, and of course it was negative, and there were no antibodies, so it wasn't from her. And so then we came up with, we said, you know, wait a minute here, we got this flu shot, and we did this research on the flu shot, and we found some material that said basically after you take a flu shot, there are obviously antibodies put into your bloodstream from the flu shot.
Right.
And between 30 and 60 days after you get the flu shot, then this could possibly show up, and it could give you a false positive for this.
Is that not crazy?
So we found it. Yeah, we found it.
It was an article by the CDC. It was an article by the CDC.
Yeah, we found the math, and we said, well, wait a minute here. This is when the flu shot was. This is when I got tested.
October.
This is when I showed up. So I said, if this is true, then it's going to be January the 9th would be, or January I think January the 7th, January the 9th would be about 60 days after I got the flu shot.
Right.
That this should not show up any longer.
So what I want people to know is when you got the test the first time,
right,
it absolutely fell squarely in that 60-day period where
the 30 to 60 days after the flu shot.
And there's a small percentage. I want to be clear. It's like
5%.
Like 5% of the population who get the flu shot may show a false positive for this particular test. And it's so small that no one thinks about it. Even the team, even the transplant team was unaware of this information. Right. Because I remember you guys bringing it to them.
Yeah, when we shared it with them, they said, hey, we are going to implement this into our education process to say, hey, if you're going to be a kidney donor
or donor,
don't get the flu shot within 90 days of you donating a kidney, because we're going to do a blood test and this could show up positive. So the test showed up negative, obviously, and then the confirmation test showed up positive or negative, the other way around. Yeah. So then around the. But
then you don't stop.
No, the first week in January, I said, hey, look, this is the day. Now we need to go get another blood test. So I had a blood test done.
So you leave, you go back to Indiana. We're all brokenhearted. I'll never forget. We sat on this couch, and it was like a funeral. We were all so somber, and we were just like, we felt like we'd gotten so close, and then it had been ripped away.
Right. So we went back. I went back in January, the first or second week in January. I had the blood test done again. We sent the results down to Charlotte we had a lab here in Indiana do the blood draw, and I actually took the samples. They packaged them up, and I took them to FedEx. And I said, hey, I'm going to take them to FedEx, because what happens is when the labs draw your blood, they may sit there for 2 days or something before the person the carrier comes and picks the stuff up and brings it down. And I said, hey, I'm going to get it done. I'm going to send it down there. I'm going to overnight it to you. And so
I overnighted to give this.
Overnighted the stuff. And they said, hey, you're negative on the test, or you're positive on the test, but then the confirmation test showed up negative again. They said, go have another test done. We'll have our lab, or no, I'm sorry, that was the first one. They said, we'll have our lab do it. And so I did that, and it was the same result. So then I had another one done a couple of days later and had the lab up here do it, and it was negative on both fronts. So then I was like, great, it's negative on both fronts. Let's move forward. And they said, okay, no problem. We're going to do it. And so then we scheduled the
because there was something, what we realized is there was something in the testing here
Yeah,
with
it was
your
something
blood
in the testing facility which was causing it to do a
here.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
there
yeah.
in that test, because we had 2 blood tests done there, and they were both negative for the test, but they were both or
They were
positive
for the test, but
but
negative
for the
on the confirmation.
confirmation was negative. But up here, both tests were negative. They were negative for the test and negative for the confirmation.
And didn't you get it done twice up there?
I did. I had it done twice up here because I had it done 2 days before the actual surgery, right before I got on the flight. And then they said, hey, we're going to use those results in your chart. And then we also have to tell the recipient that you tested positive for this, and we have to let them know that. Yeah, we have to let them know that this is that this could be a concern. And of course, he's like, Matt was like, man, okay, I get the hit, but I got a new kidney,
right? Sign off.
So
Sign off.
Yeah, exactly, right, exactly. And so it was so really at the that's and then we scheduled it for February. In fact, I think it was February the 13th.
Day before Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day that I came down. I think I came down. I want to say that was a Tuesday, and I think I flew down on a Sunday, and I was down there because I had to do a couple of appointments in the morning, and then drink that barium. Yeah.
And I want to say this. Pause. I felt so bad because one, you're donating this beautiful organ, and it is life-changing, and it is absolutely, like, you are stunning and ridiculously generous to do this. And poor Barry, his particular diet, he had to like not eat for 24 hours, drink this barium stuff, and Matt could just eat straight up until the moment.
He could eat. Like, I think he was I think he stopped by the Chick-fil-A on the way to the hospital that morning and got a biscuit, I know.
And poor Barry's like drinking this nasty, salty stuff. Oh, I felt bad for you. I did. I felt so bad for you. But I do remember you saying that the doctors were all like, hey, because you were so important. You are so important. But I remember in that process, you were so important. And one of the doctors are like, now, are you going to be all right when this treatment ends? Because this treatment follows the kidney. You remember?
Yeah, it was, they basically said, look, because it was so nice.
Rock star.
It was, everyone in this entire process treated me like I was giving this gift that was just.
Because you were.
It was so, but everyone was like, oh, thank you so much. And thank you so much. And thank you so much. You're such a hero. And I was like, man, it's not like that. It's just, that's not the way I felt. And
but I remember him asking you
it's still not the way I felt. In fact, I see the way, to be honest with you, I see the way that I was treated down there. And fast forward, I have a friend of mine who I've known since 2nd grade, lives up in Holland, Michigan, and he is a donor for his dad. And so he donated his kidney to his dad. In fact, this January of 20, he donated it, and he asked me to come up and see him while he was doing this thing, while he was in the hospital. And he said it was really, he had really gotten the courage to do this, and really just kind of put him over the edge doing this by following along with my story when I donated my kidney to Matt. And I was like, man, that's so odd that the behavior that I have would actually change someone else's behavior, or give someone the courage to do this for somebody else. And the way I was, and I kept to myself about how I was being, everyone was talking about a hero and shaking my hand and glad handing me, and thanks so much.
Awesome.
Because we went up to that hospital up in Grand Rapids, and it wasn't like that at all.
Shut up.
It wasn't. I was like, when he got discharged, they gave him like a kidney pillow. They gave him like a little pillow to hold on to when he coughed, and that was it. But he was in and out. He's exactly my age, my friend, and he's exactly my age. He's physically fit. He's a firefighter, and he was out. I think he was out of the hospital in 2 days.
Well,
and after
Barry, you were out of the hospital pretty fast too. I just remember, I feel like you got out of the hospital in 3 days. Mm-hmm. And Matt got out of the hospital
Tuesday, and we went home Friday. And I think that they were going to release me on Thursday, but because I was from out of town and I was staying with you and Matt, they were like, well, we don't want you to go back to a house that doesn't have anyone there, so we're just going to
Right.
keep you in the hospital for another day.
Right.
And, you know, I mean, what's another 30 grand, you know?
Right.
So,
Right.
I mean, we're
When
going to
we're
keep you in the
talking
hospital.
about millions,
Yeah, we're going to keep you in the hospital another day and then go home with Matt on Friday.
But really,
yeah, he and I
talking
were up.
about your friend, real quick, I just want to emphasize that. Like, you're like, I couldn't believe that, you know, my behavior would impact someone else. It does.
Yeah.
That's the thing about it. We actually are very connected as human beings, and what we do, it matters. It makes a difference. That just showed you, like, for you, it wasn't that big of a deal. I know it wasn't, because I mean, you knew it was a big deal. You knew our family needed it. But what I could see was, it was so you had such a pragmatic outlook. You're like, oh, it needs to be done. He needs a kidney. I have a kidney. Let me give it. But anything we do, I just want to stop and say, anything we do has ripple effects. So why not do good? Why not do good? Because your goodness in our lives, your friend in Holland may never meet us. We may never meet him. But your goodness to us impacted his goodness to his family. And then there will be people who will learn about his story that will impact. I mean, like, we can truly change and lift up each other in major ways.
And that's really, you know, kind of my way of looking at things in life is I get to where I want to be in life by helping those around me get to where they want to be.
That's so true.
Because if I'm able to lift someone up around me, then that actually impacts me more than I know. And
absolutely.
And it impacts me because, you know, if you're able, just like you said, if you're able to go, people are not going to remember, in the words of, Maya Angelou, they're not going to remember, what you did or what you said, but they're going to remember how you made them feel.
It's so true.
And really, the impact that you have on other people, whether it's a time of this pandemic or not, or whether it's just regular life, because after this thing is said and done, 50% of people are going to get back to their normal lives. And they're just going to get back to their normal lives of all about themselves,
selfishness,
and just doing, probably more than that. But I would hope that this time, I mean, obviously what the American Family Association says that the divorces are up between in the last 6 weeks, because everyone's stuck in the same house and everyone's around each other so much.
Yeah.
I get that, but people really need to find out what's important to them. And they need to realize that all you have in this life, your blessings and your things, you have to be grateful. You've got to be grateful, and you've got to be content with what you have. Because if you're not content with what you have, then you're never going to be happy. Nothing is ever going to be enough.
That's what I always tell Kaya. And one of the things too on that is, it just showed, like, if you can't find peace and joy right where you are,
right,
it won't exist over here. It won't exist over here when you reach it. And it's similar, if you aren't doing what you're supposed to be doing right now in the circumstance that you have, you won't do what you're supposed to do under the best of circumstances.
That's right. The grass is never greener on the water. On the other side, it's greener where you water it.
That's right.
And it really is. Yeah. And one thing that has really kept me grounded in the last 10 years and 11 years nearly is my wife, Nikki. And she is such a beautiful soul and a beautiful person. And she's so patient.
She really is.
With my ridiculous's.
And you are ridiculous in the best way.
Yeah, she is so patient and so loving, and so she really is. And I tell her this not often enough, but I tell her that she is proof that God loves me. And she's my compass. She's so many things to me, and I'm so glad that we're able to, get her to retire this year. I told her when she turned 45, then she would no longer work. She would just retire. And she's been a hygienist for 20 plus years. And of course we have a 5-year-old, and I've been blessed in my career to be able to provide the income that we need to so she doesn't have to work. If she wants to work, that's one thing, but she doesn't have to.
Right. And I wanted to say this. When you guys got out of the hospital that Friday, Saturday morning, you were up at the crack of dawn in Matt's office, taking calls and working back in the grind. I mean, like, it was unbelievable. You are, yesterday I interviewed a former client of mine and who's become a great friend. And one of the things I said, what's the one great thing that you've learned through this? And she said that you can do hard things, that if hard things are needed, you can do them if you need to do them. And I want to ask you that question, Barry. What's something that you've learned through this process that has been really enlightening for you?
Through the kidney donation process?
Yeah, just everything. Yeah. And then I want to get to COVID.
Yeah. Through the kidney process is, you know what? It's just like you said, I don't ever consider any part of that process difficult or straining or anything. I don't really consider any of that process difficult, because it really wasn't. I mean, everyone made me very comfortable. Everyone made sure that they had my best interests at heart. The whole time I looked at the impact, and I looked at the impact of what my action was going to do. And what that meant was for the year prior to the surgery, 3 days a week, Matt was in a dialysis chair for 4 hours a day. And after the surgery, the chances of him going back to that dialysis chair was very, very slim. And that means that 12 hours of his week now would be spent impacting his family. And with him and you and having Kaya, you guys needed him there. You needed him present. And that was the impact. That was the impact, that you guys could get into a car and you could drive. Because I remember after the surgery, you guys went somewhere, and you went somewhere and you went somewhere outside of Charlotte.
We did.
And it was the first time that you had been able to do that in a long time.
Yeah.
And that meant a lot to you as a family, because it drew your family closer together. And it was him being in the car without him having to worry about, hey, I got to go to dialysis at 3:00. Right. Or I got to be there at this time tomorrow morning at 7:00.
Right. We could never leave during the week. We'd be like, okay, if we had to get away, maybe we'll get away the moment you get out of dialysis.
Right.
And he's like, through, and then we'll drive somewhere and we'll be there Saturday, Sunday, and we'll come back on Sunday so you can be there for dialysis. I mean, we did that like twice, and it was stressful. It was very stressful,
because not only with him, because I would talk to him sometimes after dialysis, and I was like, man, how you doing? And he's like, man, I'm wiped out. I'm just so tired. It was like a patient going through chemo.
Yeah.
And it was just so wiping out. And that's really when I talked to him after those treatments, that was really a driving force for me wanting this more than anything, was because he deserved so much better quality of life than that. And that's really what drove me to it. And, I know that if the tables were turned and, he had the opportunity to do that, he's a good person.
He is.
And he would have done it.
He would have.
Man, he wouldn't maybe not have called me back when I called him.
That's what I'm saying. He's a terrible friend. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, well, that's okay. But he's just not a telephone talker. He's not a telephone talker, and that's okay, because
just so you know, he doesn't really call me.
I understand. Yeah, and I get that, and I understand that, and so that's okay. It's when you have expectations of other people, when your expectations are not met, and you're let down because of that. Well, that's something you built up in your mind. It wasn't necessarily their intention.
Yeah.
And so
your big takeaway, you think, is looking at the impact of your actions, that
Yeah.
I recognize there's power, there's impact to my actions.
Yeah, because
I
at
love
the end
that.
of at the end of the day,
Mhm.
when this life is over with,
Yeah.
it's gonna be, you know, how you impacted people.
It's so true. Barry, I since we're getting to the end here, I just want to
Yeah.
go over, ask this question. So recently you and I were talking, I think last week, and you were home and not feeling well. Turns out, please tell everybody what happened with you, Barry.
Yeah, well, obviously
Because
my
you're
company,
more susceptible to infection now
Yeah.
that you are a donor.
Yeah, I am. Obviously, my body works a little differently with only having one kidney, and really the only change I had to make was I just had to cut back on salt,
Mhm.
and because your kidney, kidney filters
Mhm.
that salt out of your bloodstream,
Mhm.
and good thing I don't like salt in the first place. Now, my wife, that's a different story. She'll salt anything before tasting it.
Right.
And
Yeah, I can't do
yeah,
that.
and I don't understand people who love baked potatoes out there. She's
Yes.
like, it's a baked potato. It needs salt. And I'm like, why does it? No, it's a baked potato. It doesn't need salt. It doesn't. It's a potato already. It doesn't need, say, please add salt. There's no direction. So the so really, yeah.
Oh my God.
Where was I going?
You're going over about, I said recently your body's more susceptible to
Oh, sure.
disease, and last week you and I were talking and you told me some information that I
Yeah,
thought
so-
I wanted to give you the floor.
Yeah. So what I did was I actually had our company had a policy. We got our way in front of this and we said, hey, listen, if you're feeling bad at all, if you feel like you've been exposed, then I want you to take an automatic 5 days and go home and work from home. And our company is set up where the IT department would just put together a care package for you with everything that you needed to work from home, every single thing to basically build an office at home. And that was, if you send an email by 7 a.m., by 10 o'clock in the morning, that package would be on your doorstep. Well, me as a senior manager, I went into work and I said, hey, I'm not feeling good. I'm going to go home. So I went home so I wouldn't obviously expose anybody else. Well, the day that, and then I went to a video chat with a nurse online, and
Yep.
they said, oh no, you probably don't have anything. You just need to keep your stuff away from everybody else for the next 2 weeks. And with the symptoms you have, and I said, no, you don't understand. I said, I've donated a kidney. I've talked to my kidney team. They said that I should get tested, that I'm probably at risk. And so they didn't really want to do anything. The nurses didn't really want to do anything with the healthcare system that I talked to. And then I basically forced a conversation with a doctor the same way. I went online and I requested a conversation with a doctor, and
I love you. Diligent.
so then once the doctor talked to me, he said, hey, no, there's no problem here. You probably don't have this. And, we're not testing people just because they think that they have this. And I said, just put it in my notes that I'd like to get tested. So he said, okay, I'll write it in your notes. So then I called the emergency room at that same hospital system. And I said, listen, I just got screened by this doctor, and he put it in my notes. And the doctor was like, well, before he even did that, he said, have you been exposed? And I said, well, I don't know if I've been exposed. And they said, well, if you've been exposed for more than 10 minutes within 6 feet of someone who actually tested positive, then you're at high risk of having this. And I said, well, how would I know that? How would I know if I've been
How would
exposed?
any of us know that?
And then they said, well, we need the names of the people who you think are exposed so we can put that in your chart. I said, I have no idea. I have no idea. It could be the
old lady at the grocery store.
Yeah, the lady at the Kroger that was coughing on the cauliflower. I don't know.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
so
The guy
I went
picking
to
his nose at the gas station.
Yeah.
What are
So
we talking about?
I went to the hospital, and I walked into the ER, and they gave me they said, hey, have you been screened? And I said, yes, I got screened through your process. And so they gave me a little name tag that said, I've been screened for COVID-19. So then I went back from there to the actual triage, and the triage nurse was saying, or the receptionist in the ER said, why do you think that you've been exposed? And I said, well, look, I've donated a kidney. I've been recommended that I get tested. And they were basically just saying, no, we're not testing everyone in Indiana just because you think that you've been exposed. Just go home and do this. We're not testing you. And I said, no. I said, I'm here. You're going to test me. So then they said, okay, fine. There was no one else in the ER. So they put me back with the nurse, and they took my vitals, and then they put me back in a room. And 2 minutes later, I saw an ER doctor. He came in. He used a stethoscope, and he said, yeah, you have a you have a cough with an upper respiratory viral infection. And he said, I'm going to order the test for you. You'll get your results in about 12 hours. Well, that was Thursday at about 11 in the morning. So I said, well, I probably won't get my results today. And I said, I'll call back in the morning. And they said, perfect, call back in the morning. Well, what I did was I actually, on the way out, I actually looked at one of the telephones on the desk in the ER at the charge nurse, and I got the number, because I knew that if I'm going to call tomorrow, I'm going to have to get through a whole red tape. I'll probably get a call center
around the merry-go-round.
Exactly right. So I called first thing in the morning, and I said, hey, this is Barry Teague. I got tested yesterday. I'd like to see my results. And they said, yeah, hang on a second. And so they said, no, the results are not in yet. It's going to be anywhere from 72 hours from when your test was done to 7 days. We'll get the results back. And I said, okay, no problem. So I called every hour. Called at 9 o'clock, called at 10 o'clock, called at 11 o'clock. At 6 o'clock, they put me on hold. Well, the charge nurse put me on hold, but she didn't know that she didn't mute the phone. So I can hear her and her other charge nurses talking in the background. And I swear, I think I heard one of them say, just tell him he tested positive so he'll stop calling. And so she got back on the phone and she said, yep, your results just came in, Mr. Teague, and you tested positive for the COVID-19. And I said, well, what's this mean? And they started talking to me, and she was nice. But I put my wife on the phone, because when I get results like that, I only hear 50% of this stuff. Right. You don't pay attention. So I put my wife on the phone to ask all the questions, and she did. And then the next day, that was on Friday, on Saturday at about 10 o'clock in the morning, we got another phone call from that hospital system and said, hey, I just want to let you know that your results came in. This was actually the person who was calling everyone whose results came in. And they told me I was positive. So Friday, what I did was I asked that nurse to send me a note saying that I tested positive for the test, and I forwarded that to my employer.
And what were you doing? Were you feeling really bad?
No, to be honest with you, my symptoms, I had about 1 or 2 days of a temperature at like 100.6 was my high temperature.
Hey,
I had 1 or 2 days of basically getting the chills for about 30 minutes at night, and then a little bit of a dry cough. That was it. And my symptoms were, they lasted about a day and a half, 2 days, and that was it. And I didn't take, and I haven't taken any Tylenol for my fever. I haven't taken any of that since the 25th. Yeah, since the 25th of March. I haven't taken any, and I haven't had a fever since.
Wow.
And so the president of my company called, and of course my company's, wonderful when they take care of their employees. And he just said, hey, I want to see how you're feeling. If you need anything at all, let me know and I'll drop it off at your house. And then the CFO called me, the director of operations called me, the human resource president called me. Everyone called me and checked up on me while I was out. Well, because I tested positive.
How did that impact your family though? I mean, because now you tested positive and you're in your family.
I basically stayed in and I'll show you here, I stayed in my office, which is here.
I see it.
I stayed, basically, that's my office. And I stayed in my office for a couple of days, 3-4 days. I slept in that chair right there. And
comfy.
Yeah, that's actually a chair. That's actually a chair that Matt helped me move one time.
I know.
And so, yeah, so I slept in my chair and I stayed away from everybody else. And then at that point, we just decided that, hey, the family has been exposed, so the family's just not going to go anywhere.
Is anybody in your family feeling bad?
No, Sam, the oldest, he was feeling bad. He had a temperature for a couple of days and a little bit of a cough for a couple of days. But other than that, nobody else was symptomatic. I think Nikki had a little bit of a cough for a couple of days. And I can probably believe that everyone in the family was exposed to it and maybe even had it. And so we just kept everyone away for a couple of weeks, and that's it. And that's basically, we just quarantined ourselves and kept everyone away, and that was it. But it was it was hardly any symptoms at all. But my company said, hey, look, you're going to be quarantined I want you to stay at home, work from home for 14 days from the day that you got tested. And the CDC actually told me, the health department called me and told me that basically 7 days after I have my first symptoms, I could actually go back to work.
Oh, wow.
So my first symptoms were like Wednesday. And so Wednesday the 23rd, So they said really basically 7 days after that, you could go back to work. My company had a policy that said, hey, you're going to work from home. And so about 80% of our people with our company are working from home right now. And I just went back to work on Tuesday of this week.
How was it?
My office. Yeah, it was fine. In my division, everybody was back there, but we've all moved areas and moved desks to keep away.
Yeah.
To keep away from everyone else, so we're not really on top of each other, and it's fine. It's fine. It's a lot different working from home than it is at work with the kind of work that I do. So
Barry, before, because I know we're coming up in an hour, I just want to ask you a couple of questions on in ending. So one, I posted a photo of you going to Elton John's concert. Did they really like your get up? Did anybody like your digs when you walked into that concert?
I wish I would have seen him, but he has canceled a couple of times on us. The first concert was actually in October.
Oh.
And it was October the 25th. They changed it to the 26th because he was ill. And then they changed it again to March the 26th. And then, of course, that never happened. And so now we've gotten notification from his camp saying that the concert will be in 2021.
But what we do know is you got the gear for it.
I do. Yeah. Not only do I have the gear, but I've got
I love you.
So I've got the tickets.
Oh, hello.
I've got, all the tickets and all the passes that I need for the concert.
Oh.
And so I've got my credentials are ready to go.
Hello, VIP.
Yeah, exactly. My credentials are ready to go. This was a birthday gift to myself.
I love it.
And so, yeah, I couldn't believe my wife let me buy the tickets, but yeah, it was a birthday gift. It was a birthday gift to myself. So we're going to be actually right off the stage. We're going to be in section 4 at Bankers Life here in Indianapolis. Section 4, right on the floor. And so it's strategically purchased that seat because of the way that he positions his piano on stage. So we'll be able to. It's going to be a great show.
We're going to get some eye contact.
Yeah, when it happens,
I see you, Elton.
He's going to see me. He's going to see me in my gear, and he's going to say, you know what? I want to meet that bloke.
I want to meet that guy. That guy has something I want to meet. Okay.
That's right.
Then what sound I'm going to channel right now one of my favorite interviewers, James Lipton, off of the Actor Studio. What sound or noise do you love?
Wow. That's going to have to be silent. That's the noise that I love.
Okay.
That's the noise that I love. I love, I love being in a house full of 4 kids and 2 dogs. I love the morning. I tell you, I love the sound of my coffee maker in the morning, making my coffee, because I know that that's going to give me my energy. I drink 1 cup of coffee a day, usually about 24 ounces. So a small cup. And so, yeah. And so when I drink my coffee in the morning, that's going to give me my energy that I need all day long.
When you drink your big gulp?
Big gulp?
Your big gulp of coffee?
Yeah. I have in the gas stations, I have seen 80 ounce cups before. And I understand people go in there and get 80 ounces worth of something.
I don't even know. Then, what is your favorite curse word?
I have so many. I have so many.
Oh, I love it. Okay, Barry, if heaven exists, what do you want God to say when you get there?
I want God to look at me and say, well done, my good and faithful servant.
That's it. I really appreciate it, Barry. I love having you in my life, and I love that you are our friend.
Thank you very much for having me, and I appreciate it. And it's really humbling that you would ask me to be a part of this.
Oh my gosh. Please, Barry. Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Thanks. Hey, you have a good day.
You too. Peace.
All right. Bye.